Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading on January 22nd, 2026. I hope everybody's doing well. Let's see, I've got a couple of topics that I'd like to discuss today, but I'll probably break them up into 2 or 3 separate videos. I'm not sure yet. But, as I mentioned, like for year 2026, I do not consent. Oh, there goes my little art. It's wrapped in plastic, and the plastic is sliding down the page here. But anyway, the topic for today is interstate stalking. Now, we've got cyber stalkers that stalk us online. We've got stalkers that stalk us at home and that follow us around. But what if you have stalkers, the same stalkers, not the ones that you report, well, you've moved 5 or 6 times and the stalking continues. I haven't heard anybody say that the same groups of individuals are following you from state to state. They're generally new groups of individuals. But what happens if you move from one state to another and the same person is stalking you? Or what if you have a cyber stalker that you find out has been stalking you since 2024, maybe even before that, and then decides to move to your state? That would be considered interstate stalking. So I was doing a little research on that, and this is what interstate stalking is. And this is from the Cornell Law School. And of course, this is 18 U.S. Code section 2261A, stalking. Whoever travels in interstate or foreign commerce or is present within the special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States, or enters or leaves Indian country with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate, or place under surveillance with the intent to kill, injure, harass, or intimidate another person, and in the course of, as a result of, such travel or presence engages in conduct that places a person in a reasonable amount of fear of death or serious bodily injury to that person, to that person's immediate family member, as defined in section 115 of that person, a spouse or intimate person, partner of that person, or, and this is interesting, a pet, service animal, or emotional support animal, or a horse of that person, or it causes or attempts to cause or would be reasonably expected to cause substantial emotional distress to the person. And then it describes in the subparagraphs here. So the interstate stalking statute is codified under the stalking law, which is U.S.C. 2261A, which makes it a federal crime to stalk someone by crossing state lines or using interstate communications with the intent to harm, harass, intimidate the victim. This law includes actions that cause the victim to fear for their safety or suffer emotional distress, and it carries severe penalties with a potential imprisonment. And this is according to the Department of Justice. So now let me continue. I've got another page here. Now let's define the federal statute addressing interstate stalking. Once again, it's codified in Title 18 of the U.S. Code, specifically Section 2261A, which is the stalking law, the federal stalking law. This was established as part of the Violence Against Women Act of 1996. This law exercises Congress's authority to regulate interstate commerce, giving the federal government jurisdiction over a crime that typically falls under state authority. Yes. So the statute criminalizes a pattern. This is the key. It's a pattern of behavior that extends beyond state borders or uses channels of interstate communication to target a victim. This ensures that perpetrators cannot evade justice simply by crossing state lines or using the internet to continue harassment. Or what if they start the harassment online and then take it offline across state lines? So now the key elements required for conviction are, under the federal statute, is a prosecutor must prove 3 specific elements beyond a reasonable doubt. 1, there's the criminal intent, mens rea. The individual must possess a specific intent to kill, injure, harass, or intimidate the target of the stalking. This distinguishes criminal stalking from accidental contact. It's not accidental when somebody follows you across state lines or first stalks you on the internet in 2024 or earlier, and then continues in 2025 and 26, and then maybe even possibly move to your state to continue the surveillance and harassment and stalking. So this would fall under the federal interstate stalking guidelines. So number 1 would be the criminal intent. Then there's the jurisdictional means. This element establishes the federal link to the crime. The perpetrator must have traveled in interstate or foreign commerce or use a facility of interstate commerce, such as an email provider, a social media platform, or telephone system. This interstate connection justifies federal intervention. Then, of course, there is the resulting harm. The perpetrator's actions must cause a specific impact upon the victim. This impact is defined as either placing a person in a reasonable fear of death, serious bodily injury, or causing substantial emotional distress. Protection also extends to the victim's immediate family, spouse, intimate partner, or their service animal or pet. It doesn't have to be a service animal, it could be just your pet. So understanding the scope of stalking conduct, the federal statute defines the prohibited action as a course of conduct. This is a pattern, requiring a pattern of behavior made up of 2 or more acts over time. So like a single isolated incident of an unwarranted contact is not sufficient to meet the elements of a federal crime. So if it happens once, it happens once. But what if it's persistent? What if it happens over years? That is premeditated, and that is a pattern of behavior. The course of conduct encompasses a variety of very specific behaviors, including surveillance, monitoring, showing up at the victim's home or workplace. It also includes cyber stalking behaviors, such as sending repeated unwanted electronic communications, posting harassing messages on social media, or unauthorized monitoring of online activity. And I'm going to tell you for a fact, and let me just finish this. The conduct must serve no legitimate purpose and be reasonably expected to alarm or cause distress of the victim. Now, this is a fact. Now, this is bizarre. Because a technique that I learned from a YouTube creator about how to post your videos for the first time, and I did not do this for the first 2 years. I would post my videos and just post them. And then I would edit them out later, and could be hours later. I don't do that anymore. I will post a video and allow it to go through the YouTube what is it called? YouTube has this checks and balances that it goes through. It sometimes takes 15-20 minutes. I never knew this years ago, but I can see it in the YouTube studio after I post a video, and it says it'll tell me 12 minutes left or whatever, and it doesn't mean for the upload. It's already been uploaded, but YouTube is checking it to make sure it's not a copyright infringement or anything else like that, and that's a-okay. So once the minutes expire, then you can go in and make the unlisted video public. Well, I find it really interesting that my unlisted videos can already have a like within nanoseconds of my posting it. So somebody's obviously surveilling my content with the ability to see it when nobody else sees it, and click like the thumbs up, like they're clicking it to watch it. It could be the thumbs down, the thumbs up, or whatever, but they've clicked on the video as having been viewed. I find that really interesting. That's been going on for quite a while now too. So now let's define interstate stalking. The federal interstate stalking involves two distinct actions that establishes federal jurisdiction. The first occurs when an individual physically travels across a state or international line with the intent to injure, harass, or intimidate another person. The second involves using any facility of interstate or foreign commerce, such as email, telephone, or the internet, to commit the same act of stalking. This ensures that laws cover both the physical movement and the electronic communication. And in both scenarios, the perpetrator's actions must result in placing the victim in a reasonable fear of death, serious bodily injury, or cause substantial emotional distress. And basically, those three categories is how they define stalking in particular. You have the fear of death, fear of a serious bodily injury, and causing emotional distress or stress. Okay, so then 1 second, I've got a little bit more here. So there's some penalties for violating these interstate stalking laws, and this is from Legal Clarity Online, legalclarity.org. This is on the 18 U.S.C. 1801 federal interstate stalking laws. So now, like when I moved from 52 Sutton Drive, Manalapan, New Jersey, a home I lived in for 30 years as an original owner, and this is a fact, when I was house searching here in Kentucky, there was a woman who crisscrossed with me in the hallway of a hotel I was staying at in Berea. She had that smirky grin on her face, she was bouncing up and down, like she had a little bounce in her step, like she was like reveling in the stalking of me. And I noticed her, and the interesting thing is, I did not have any back problems that night, even flying or whatever, but I woke up the next day, not the next day, it was a couple of days after that I was staying here. I woke up with really bad back pain. I almost could not get on my flight because my back hurt so much. That biatch, she was microwaving me. Yeah, she was microwaving me in my hotel room. And how do I know? So then I finally sell my house, move to Kentucky. The first time I go into town, 6 miles away from here, it was July of 2019. I drive into town. I go to turn left, and this woman, the same woman, was in a vehicle, like a police vehicle, somewhat. And she crossed me again. Smirky grin on her face. Same woman. Same woman. She don't have emblems on the outside of the vehicle. I don't know if she was the wife of a law enforcement person. I don't know if she's a 3-letter agency person. All I know was it was the same person. Now, did this woman stalk me from New Jersey? I don't know. I don't remember seeing her in New Jersey. I just remember seeing her 2 times, not once, two times in Kentucky. Once when I was staying in Berea, in a hotel, and two right here in town, which is 40 minutes from Berea, right here in town. First time I go into town in July of 2019. She just drives right by me, just a coincidental encounter. But you all know how that works if you're a targeted person. It's all pre-planned. So I don't know if she's interstate, but I could pick her from a lineup if I saw her again. I haven't seen her again, but you know how these people are. They hide behind the black windows and you don't know who they are. So now there's the relationship to state stalking laws, because every state has stalking laws, and then there's the federal stalking laws. So now if the penalties for violating this federal interstate stalking law, if convicted, it is classified as a felony, and it carries significant penalties. The base offense is punishable by up to 5 years in a federal prison and a substantial fine of $250,000. The court may also order restitution to the victim for any incurred losses. And those losses could be, loss of time, writing letters, contacting, if you were to contact law enforcement, or file any complaints or contact an attorney, any kind of losses. Loss of sleep, loss of your emotional security. The severity of the sentence increases based upon aggravating factors. If the conduct results in serious bodily injury or death, or the maximum prison sentence can increase to 20 years or life if the person literally deletes you. And again, this is for educational purposes only. I'm reading the interstate stalking laws from legalclarity.org. So now what happens is repeat offenders with a prior stalking or domestic violence conviction, and these criminals, they get away with everything, so they may or may not actually have a conviction, but it doesn't mean that they're not a repeat offender. They may face a maximum sentence that's doubled. It will actually double the standard term. Now, the state stalking laws, stalking is illegal in every state, and most cases, excuse me, are investigated and prosecuted at the state level. Not here in Jackson County, Kentucky. It's not happening here in Kentucky. The federal statute does not replace the state laws, but it provides a mechanism to prosecute cases involving the interstate component. Federal law enforcement resources are typically reserved for incidents that clearly cross state lines or involve the systemic use of interstate communication facilities. And you could use your imagination about what those interstate communication facilities may or may not be. Again, this is for educational purposes only. Interstate communication facilities. I'm wondering, would that be like those fusion centers that collaborate and share information and have partnerships? They like to share information. Do they share stalkers? Do interstate stalkers register with the fusion centers? Inquiring minds like to know. Leave a comment down below. What are your thoughts on that? Has anybody witnessed somebody first stalking them online, maybe in another state or whatever, and then showing up in your state? Have you witnessed that? Have you heard about that? And has anybody tried to seek legal remedies through the federal interstate stalking laws? But anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. And also, there is a cold snap that's moving across the U.S. I was just watching that a little while ago. It's going to be starting in Texas and go through Oklahoma and Alabama and all those places. Actually, some parts of Tennessee, Western Kentucky, all the way, up the Midwest, St. Louis, Missouri. It's saying now, I cannot believe this is going to be true, but the wind chill could be as much as 30 degrees below zero, with snow, freezing rain, ice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they said something to the effect that we haven't seen a storm like this since 2021. And I remember when we had a storm here in 2021 with all this snow. And I remember calling up my friend here in Kentucky and saying, listen, I moved from New Jersey to get away from the snow. You told me that there's no snow. There's literally no snow in Kentucky. And she says, well, I don't know what's going on here. It's like we had feet of snow and ice that literally closed the roads down. So what that means is that the local criminals, well, actually, some of them actually do drive by. It's like it baffles the mind that they'll even go out in the bad weather, but they do because, they got to get the gift cards going on. But yeah, so what happens when it's really bad like that? It gets very quiet around here. The animals hibernate, they'll hibernate for a little while. The criminals will hibernate for a little while. You have to wait because unlike New Jersey, where the snowplow trucks are out 4, 5, 6 times from night until early morning, here you'll get it once or twice, and it'll be probably later in the morning. Like not necessarily at night. It'll be, after it's light in the morning, and then the plow trucks will come by. But anyway, I'm going to vow that I'm not going to be shoveling at all. I'll only shovel to get out of my house, get to the chicken coops and back, get to the cat's building. That's it. Spring will be here soon enough and it'll all melt. But I also wanted to mention, for those people that may be experiencing this living in your car, I watched a couple of videos, I don't know, a few weeks ago about how in the olden days, when there was no heat, how people kept warm. And it was actually remarkable. They would select these thick oval stones. They were very smooth. And during the day, they would bake them. They would keep them on like coal or an open fire. Get them really nice and hot and toasty. And they were the stones were like 5 or 6 inches long. They were fairly thick, like 2, 3 inches thick. Let them get nice and toasty. They wouldn't crack. And then they would wrap them in very, very thick, like a canvas or whatever, and have multiples of them and bring them into the house. And they would huddle together, like they would put them in the bed, and like all entire families would sleep in one big bed and stuff. But if you've got a vehicle, you can get bricks, you can get these rocks and warm them up. There's something else. And I bought these for my cats. And I would do this when I lived at 52 Sutton Drive in Alpin, New Jersey, home I lived in for 30 years as the original owner, and then when I moved here too. For those of you guys who have like an extra $30, you can buy something called a Snuggle Safe Disc. It is a microwavable pet warmer. I'm going to say it's about a foot long, round, maybe a couple of inches thick. And it's got a very thick substance in the middle of it. The criminals here, they actually dented them and caused them to explode, so I'm not using them anymore, and I don't use my microwave oven anyway. But for those of you guys that, go to warm up at certain places, almost everybody's got a microwave oven at these car stops and whatever. And if you were to buy one of these Snuggle Safe discs, they come with a felt cover. And they will stay warm for 8 or 9 hours. They're absolutely amazing. Actually, I have used them here, like when I first moved here. I would warm one up and stick one at the foot of my bed to keep my feet warm. They're absolutely amazing. Snuggle Safe pet warming discs. They're about $30. You can probably find them on eBay also. You can find them on Amazon. I highly recommend, if you can afford this one, $30, $32, sometimes $28, to buy one. They are absolutely remarkable, and they will keep you so nice and toasty. You can put them inside your sweatshirt. You can put them by your feet. You can warm up your gloves and your hands on them. And again, they stay warm for 8 or 9 hours. They'll stay warmer like inside of a warmer facility than like I would place them outside in a cat's house. And in the morning, they would be a little bit cooler, but they would stay warm like for maybe 5 or 6 hours instead of the 8 or 9 hours. And the cats loved them. Yes. So anyway, just wanted to give you that heads up, and I will talk to you guys soon.